Hey guys, we are moving along on the Superflower SF-860 deconstruction. Getting it all tore down, pretty much have most of it stripped out, power supplies out, motherboards out, drives are out. There were a couple things I wanted to mention to you before I took it any more apart. For one thing is a lot of people have questions about the front bezels on these. Most of the newer cases you can grab the front bezel and the bottom and it'll pop right off. They usually don't have anything attached it, just some plastic pins that pop in there that kind of hold it in place. A lot of these old cases, they used to have screws up inside of this ridge that held the front panel on. Some of them only have two. They'll have one down here in the bottom and maybe one up in here in the top. Some of them have three. They'll have a third one in about the middle here, and they usually have them on both sides. And you want to take them screws out, and then you can usually pop the front bezel off. But before you go yanking on it and snap the front bezel, trying to get it off there, always make sure there isn't any screws that are holding it on the inside here before you go yanking on it. And one more thing I wanted to mention before I pull this motherboard tray out is a lot of times when you get a new motherboard and they'll give you that bag of hardware, screws, standoffs, stuff like that with it. Generally a person will end up with a few extra standoffs and stuff laying around. It's a really good idea if you're planning on painting your motherboard tray, like we will in this one, is to take them old standoffs, ones you ain't using or whatever, line up your motherboard on it so you can tell which holes you'll be using on your motherboard for the standoffs, and then screw them old standoffs in the holes. That way when you paint it, you don't end up getting primer and paint and stuff down inside the hole. And then when you go to put your standoffs in to mount your motherboard, they don't want to start in there. They're kind of cross-threading because the threads are all gunked up with paint. Otherwise you'd need something like a tap or a thread chaser and have to run it through the holes to clean all the gunk out. So the easiest way to do it is just use some old standoffs. Stick them right in the holes that you're going to use. Spray it, paint it. That way you can just pop them back out, mount your board in, and you're set to go. So always a good tip to think about before you pull your tray, before you do any painting on the inside of your case, is to make sure you're not going to plug up any holes that you're going to need. Okay, within just literally a few minutes I have the whole case stripped down to just the metal, bezels removed. If you have like a PC speaker, anything like that, take that off. Anything you don't want paint on. I even pull the case feet off. Basically take the whole thing right to bare metal because we don't want to get overspray or paint on anything we don't want painted, or something that we may want to remove later and then leave a spot there that wasn't painted because we had it covered with something. And while I had this open, this was something I wanted to show in the previous video, but I didn't have the motherboard and stuff out at the time. But this was one of the reasons why I liked this case so much. This is the removable motherboard tray in it. I'll try to do this with one hand, and as you can see, the whole thing just pops right out. That makes it so much easier to mount your board, your RAM, get everything in there that you want to get in there. And then you can just simply slide it right back in, mount two screws, and you're ready to start hooking up your wires and stuff. So that's going to make it a little bit easier on this case to do painting. Most cases don't have removable trays, so you're going to have to get in here and sand and try to get it scruffed up so you can get some primer and stuff on it. And also makes it a little tougher when you paint because you're going to have to turn your case on its side, turn it upside down. That way you can get the right angle on your spray paint to get it in areas that otherwise would be like up underneath it or hard to reach. But here's my pile of junk I've taken out so far. It's not very tidy. I'm going to have to find a box or something and start putting all the pieces in it that I took out. I pulled the hard drive cage out, and the one thing I wanted to mention, when I mentioned I was going to put another hard drive cage probably in the bottom, and the reason I don't just reuse this one is because this one originally had a floppy drive in it, and it did have a hole in the front for it. And when you get a used case like this, you don't get the covers. You know, I didn't get a 3.5-inch cover for it to fill that hole. So on some cases, like my old water-cooled one, I had to leave a floppy drive in it just simply to cover the hole. I don't have it hooked up. I don't use a floppy drive, but just simply to not have a hole there. What I will eventually do is probably get some 3.5-inch fan controllers, maybe a small fan controller, or make some kind of a custom panel and use it for switches, for cathodes, something like that to fill the gap. But if you don't have anything else to fill the gap temporarily, you can always keep the drive in there, even if you don't hook it up, just to have something to fill the hole with, so you don't end up with just a big gap in there. And meanwhile, I may end up mounting something else in this top one. I haven't really decided yet if I'm going to put a storage drive or something up there. It all depends on how much room I'm going to have on the bottom here, because as you know, with most modern video cards, they're so darn long, and I don't want to get into a problem where the video card's so long it's going to hit the cage, and I may only be able to mount like my main drive, or you know, my fastest drive down in here to get airflow on it, and the top one maybe a terabyte or something that I'm just going to use for storage and not access that often, so I probably ain't going to need a lot of cooling on it. But that's kind of the plan for now. I'm going to see what I can find for a cage, and we'll see if we can figure out how to mount this in here. Well, this would also be a good time while you're looking at your tray setup and stuff to decide whether you want to cut a hole for your mounting your CPU coolers. This particular one I'm not going to because of the removable tray. It's easy enough to just pull the whole board out, replace the cooler if I need to, without tearing a whole lot of stuff inside of it. If you look at one of my older videos on the Roswell case, we did cut a hole for it. You can kind of refer to that if you're thinking of making one, where you can kind of size up where your CPU cooler is going to be and mark that off to cut that also. And also, I'm kind of looking at the cover here, getting an idea how I want to cut out the side cover. If you have a couple old fans laying around, they really help to give you more of a visual idea of how big, you know, the fans will be in the case themselves, if you really want to block all of your inside of your case with fans or not. I was thinking a couple of 120s on this one, but after kind of seeing how big they're going to be and how small the hole is going to be for the side cover window, I don't think that I want to go with something that big. More than likely it'll be 80s, or I might even possibly do like I've done on other cases and cut holes down in the bottom in the tray and maybe mount a couple of 120s down there. Something kind of like that, so we don't have to ruin our side cover and block all of our toys inside the case. You know, after you do all your cable management and stuff, you don't really want to hide all that. And if you have some old fans laying around, I just grabbed these three because these are the most common size. It's 120 millimeter, an 80 millimeter, and a 92 millimeter, just to get some ideas of what they would look like on the case. So if you have an old fan, even a burnt out one or anything, it's good to keep it around just simply for a template to get an idea of how you want it to look on there, or you know, how big it's going to be wherever you're going to put it. But anyway, that's going to be it for this segment, and the next step, we're going to start tearing some stuff down here, and I'm going to work some more on the trying to fabricate a hard drive holder. This one here is out of a compact computer that I pulled out that I was kind of playing with because I kind of like the idea of it being so far forward, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get the airflow with that I'm really looking for. So we're going to get back to that. And also I'm going to tear down the front bezel, start getting that ready to prep.